audio is hot.
Says we are live on YouTube right now.
Countdown started. 30 seconds to air. Seconds.
I'm not seeing that we're live on Facebook. It says we're live on YouTube. It doesn't say we're live on Facebook.
Yeah. That's what I'm seeing.
Dawson.
Okay, we're live on Facebook. Gonna run countdown once more.
Yep.
10 seconds. And we're switching to you, Jake.
All right, what's up, everybody? It's Jake Duesenberg with Action for Liberty. We're going to test out another Facebook Live in this new studio that we built. Joining me today is Jesse Smith. Young Jesse Smith, how you doing today?
Hey, Jake, I'm doing good. You know, having a good time, ready to be in front of the camera, in front of the people. It's good to explain what's going on to people out there that are not following it as closely as we are, because that's what we do. We hustle and we put out the news every day and informing good people on what's going on, so happy to do it.
You know, a lot of people don't know you, Jesse, but you're actually like what I would consider a political nerd. And trust me, I've been there before. What do you do when you go home at night? Like, what do you watch?
Oh, I go right to C-SPAN and see all those debates. No, I love it.
He watches old presidential debates. So even though he's like, what, 24 years old or whatever it is, yeah, you could probably tell us all about like Richard Nixon versus JFK, which, by the way, was the first televised debate. A lot of studies on that. Also joining us is Bridget in the control room. How you doing, Bridget?
Oh, fabulous. I mean, I was so excited to go on air today when you told me after I air dried my hair out the window on the way to work today.
Yeah. In the comment section, if you think Bridget's hair doesn't look good, please don't write that in there. That's fair point. I was.
No, there's a bill that got passed in session this year, HF 1315, that is you cannot discriminate against natural hair. So
you did not know that. You did not know that by heart. You
yeah,
just
I
looked
did.
that up.
No.
You remember the number?
Yeah, I do. We had to talk about it a couple times, more like that bill. So.
No, I remember that, but I'm just saying, like, I can't believe you would recall that bill, and I do remember that bill. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's the Crown Act.
Yeah, the Crown Act, and what it did was it said, it was something about hair. It was a circular definition because they defined race as in hair that is associated with race. I think that's what they said, right?
Is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy. All right, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Big headline, breaking news. I think some of you guys know this by now. President Joe Biden tested positive for COVID. This is one of those breakthrough cases, a rare breakthrough case, right, Jesse? These don't happen ever.
Oh, no, the vaccinated never get COVID, but here we are again with the same reality.
Well, so what's fascinating about that is when the vaccines rolled out initially, which was at the end of 2020, but really early 2021 when they were kind of becoming mainstream, they were all saying, well, first of all, they said vaccine. So vaccine meaning that it's going to create immunity, which clearly it never did.
Right.
But then they said, this is going to slow the spread of COVID or stop the spread of COVID. Probably brought that up too at some point. The data doesn't suggest that at all. It doesn't actually do any of that. Maybe it creates milder conditions, although each variant changes, and it might actually made a variant more resistant to the vaccine. But the interesting thing about it is they called them breakthrough cases at the start because they're supposed to be so rare that basically every mainstream politician that's gotten vaccinated and boosted and all that kind of stuff has gotten COVID. In Minnesota, all statewide candidates have gotten COVID. And I don't think a lot of people know this about you, Jesse, but the way that we found out about you is you were on one trajectory in life and decided to change that trajectory.
Right.
So tell them about that.
Right. I was going to law school. My plan, and my plan still today, is to finish law school, become an attorney. But of course, the vaccine mandates came in place, and I was unwilling to inject something into my body in order to continue to study what I want. And I decided to get a lot more politically involved. I was doing a lot of the things that Action for Liberty was doing just individually, going to protests, talking with people, trying to organize and see what we can do against these mandates. And I ended up connecting with Jake and realizing that that's what they were doing already with an organization, and I had to get on board.
Right. Yeah, and I remember that was like a year ago, actually.
Yep,
because we're coming
just
up
about.
in August. Yeah. So Biden, who managed to not get COVID for about 2.5 years, although if you think about it, when you live basically in campaign in your basement, and then you're in the White House, which you're the most like secure building on the planet.
Yep.
I guess you could probably be the most protected guy in the out there. So he actually gets COVID as he comes back from Saudi Arabia on a 4-day trip, or was it 4 days
begging
ago?
for oil.
Begging for oil, right?
Yep.
From the killers, the killer prince, right?
Yep. He says he's a killer, and then he fist bumps him on the way in. So we see how Biden really goes.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, this political class, they love the Saudis. That's always how it's been.
Yep.
And
but I obviously don't wish any harm on Joe Biden. I hope he recovers. I think Kamala Harris would be a disaster, and I wish him well. I do want him to be all right.
Is there a side of you that actually thinks they're trying to kill off Joe Biden?
I don't know. Obviously, there's some conspiracies out there. But as an American, I try to think the best, and I try to hope that he can not die from this thing. But I really do not want to see anything bad happen. He's not the guy he's not the same Joe Biden as he used to be. He got forced to run.
Different earlobes, right?
Yeah, but he got.
You got that reference, didn't you?
Yep.
You're a Q guy. I knew you were a Q guy. Okay.
No, I just like Q. I just support Q. I'm not. I don't believe him, but I mean, like we want pedophiles in our government. But I just got to say about Joe Biden. Wish him well. Kamala Harris, she stands for absolutely nothing. He's had 3 brain surgeries. It's tough to see what they're doing to him.
Yeah. Okay. That's your official stance. Got it. I don't necessarily wish Joe Biden well, because I think he's a terrible human being. I think most people in the political class like him are terrible human beings, especially since people got fired for mandates that were completely unconstitutional, illegal that he did. And to this day, look what this guy did in Afghanistan, that shame that he brought upon our country.
Right. And he promised he would never mandate the vaccines. And of course, it was a lie.
Yeah. I just, to me, it's my short-sightedness, but I don't generally wish well upon these people. But at the same point, I'm not like, I just hope it kills them. But I do wonder if there are people, the power structure, it's like, kind of be nice to kill this guy, because the nation's like, we lost a president, and now we got our first woman president, and
Yep. No,
which wouldn't go well for them because she polls terribly.
Right. No, she's not respected at all, and it's a tough situation that these Democrats have gotten themselves into. They've gotten themselves into a situation where the president basically has dementia, and the vice president's somehow even more unpopular than him. So that's what's going on with them, and they have no idea how to handle what's coming in 2024 and 2022 with the red wave that's happening.
Did you see that the place that he fell down on his bicycle, somebody on Google actually called it Biden Falls? Or no, I'm sorry, Brandon Falls.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if someone's going to be watching this video 10, 20 years down the road and they have no idea why it's called Brandon Falls. I've never seen something like this before. If everyone could call Joe Biden Brandon, and they get it, they understand it, because it came from this reporter, I think it was a NASCAR event, some racing event, that thought the chant that was, F Joe Biden was actually, let's go Brandon. So literally, I guess even people on the left would understand that's what they're doing, is they're referring to Joe Biden at this point. That's how mainstream it is. But certainly everyone on the right, they literally, Brandon is what they call him.
Yep.
And so someone went into Google Maps and they labeled that spot Brandon Falls.
Yep.
Not there anymore though.
Yep.
All right. I want to talk about something locally here, an issue that I think is very important, and it gets a lot of discussion because free speech is a really key thing about America. So Dave Chapelle, which I would assume is the best comic right now. I mean, you'd have to imagine that he is the top guy. I don't know the tickets sold and stuff like that, but there's very few that are at his level. They're selling out arenas and stuff. So he comes to the infamous First Avenue in Minneapolis. There's this controversy surrounding him, and it really is ridiculous controversy from the LGBTQ woke community, right? That he's anti-transgender. And if you watch the special that they're referencing, it's a ridiculous claim. Like, he literally is talking about a friend who I think committed suicide who was transgender. And it was endearing, but he throws a couple jokes at him. And by the way, that's his job. He's a comedian to make jokes. And so they actually want to silence Dave Chapelle. And so leave it to Minnesota. You know, I think there's only a few places in this planet that would do this. It'd be pretty much Minneapolis, somewhere in the Seattle or down to Portland area, places in California, and maybe New York. I don't think this would happen almost anywhere else, right? And they get First Avenue to cancel the show. And so Chapelle has to move it to a different place because I guess he's not woke enough and he doesn't apologize for the sins of telling a couple jokes, which is a massive free speech issue. I'm not saying free speech in the sense that, you know, the government's silencing him, but it's just like, even outside of the government, we should allow people to speak, especially comedians. Like, how else do we test out things? Comedians got to tell a joke about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of this Dave Chappelle stuff that was going on, I thought it was going to be over because, you know, Netflix failed and all of the employees that were trying to rise up against Dave Chappelle were, you know, they were unsuccessful. So you'd think that that's the end, but this woke culture just doesn't stop trying to cancel people if you are not in line with with their narrative, and just about everyone isn't. And, you know, they're definitely doing something crazy with people. I'm losing my train of thought here.
Well,
but Dave
I don't think
Chappelle
it's. I'm not sure it's First Avenue that really is, in the end, to blame on it. I thought, you know, I came in this morning thinking, all right, First Avenue, how dare you do this? And to some degree, maybe there is some good blame for it, but it sounds like there was a chaos brewing in terms of the staff at First Avenue, and that you know, to do a show of Dave. I mean, Dave's selling out, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So to do a show, you need a lot of staff, and there was a revolt. And this is like the culture that we're in. We're going to talk about the economy a little later in this episode, especially about how Tim Walz thinks that things are going smooth. So, God, I was reading Walter Hudson's Facebook post yesterday, and he was talking about two workers that just up and left the job midday. And it's like, yeah, everyone knows this. Like, people are taking jobs and they're quitting after a couple days because they don't like something, or it's too hard. It's you know, too challenging, or whatever it is. And so it's like, yeah, you got a chaos on your hands. If you can't have staff working this thing, you're screwed. I mean, you need staff for a Dave Chappelle show.
Right.
So maybe First Ave, if I was giving them some bit of credit, like literally was between a rock and a hard place. They had no option. They had to cancel.
Right.
But
if that's the situation, that is different. But yeah, no, that's interesting to know that it's the employees again that are trying to do something there. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But like you said, if we can't have comedians given the ability to speak freely, people that aren't even seriously meaning what they're saying, they're just joking, then free speech is dying.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. As a comedian, you can't attribute what they're saying to what they believe, right? Like, it's a freaking joke.
Yep.
Oh, unbelievable. Silencing people. Let's talk about silencing. This is something like everyone's going to be talking about Chapelle and the Biden. This is something you're going to hear here that you won't hear anywhere else. But I see a comment here. Nick wrote that there's a rumor, or at least Chapelle mentioned, that the owners of First Avenue had their family members threatened. So there you go. I mean, would you be shocked by that? I'm not shocked by that at all. So let's talk about silencing. There was a really interesting story that came up. And Dawson, I'm going to have you pull up our article on actionforliberty.com. So I never thought that the Minnesota Republican Party would be this just utterly corrupt, and maybe just call me naive. But this last weekend, they cut off data center access for 5 candidates. And those candidates are people that align with probably most of our audience, certainly the things that we espouse at Action for Liberty. So like Tom DePel, which is in Cottage Grove, Mark Bashofsky in Stillwater, Bill Liskey in Lonsdale, Natalie Barnes in Prior Lake, Brett Bussman up in Browerville. So they these guys basically are required to have so they get endorsed by the Republican Party. So that means delegates that select them say that this is the guy we want for office. The establishment puts up primary opponents against them. So basically going against the party endorsement. And so Dawson, I don't need that window up right now. We're going to come back to this article. So the establishment puts up a primary opponent to these guys, and the party's job is to support their endorsed candidates. That's like literally it, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure these guys who your delegates wanted get into office. We've heard rumblings. We have learned about ways that the party units, so not necessarily the M and GOP, but party units inside of that, are working against the endorsed candidates. We've heard these rumors, and some of them not even rumors. Some of them are just outright. They're showing they're doing it. But in this case, the Republican Party run by David Hann, which I thought this guy might be okay as a chair, right? And he's just turned out to be an abysmal failure. Mm-hmm. And this stage, corrupt. Because what he did is he took the access that these candidates have, which is like voter data rolls and phone numbers and addresses, and then the ability to go door knock people, right? So they got like an app. And he cut them off. And he cut them off on Friday. So imagine a primary is on August 9th, so 3 weeks away, and you cut off the data that these candidates need, your endorsed candidates need to go talk to Republican primary voters. And you don't talk to them all weekend. So basically they lose a weekend, a very important weekend. Mm-hmm. Monday morning they come in and they're getting an email from the state party saying you're in violation of your data share agreement, which is a ridiculous claim. And of course, just like anything, anytime the establishment wants to do something, they're going to put out a ridiculous claim. And then it's, well, what's your answer to this? Hostage by the party. They want them to sign a new data agreement, and they want these guys to basically upload all their data, which, by the way, the data could go to their opponent because the opponents are being supported by their like party units. And meanwhile, it's like your job as a Republican Party is to support these endorsed candidates.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. All 5 of these people are endorsed candidates. These are people that went through the entire process. They went to the endorsing convention. They convinced the people to vote for them and earn their endorsement of the local party. And in some cases, we see bitter incumbents who are upset that their community has lost faith in them. But unfortunately, that's what's going on in a lot of these cases. They're losing faith in the politicians who were unable to fight for them against Tim Walz during the lockdowns.
Exactly. And there's this big, I don't even know what you call this movement nowadays. It's a big grassroots conservative movement for sure. You know, in 2010, they called it the Tea Party. But whatever this movement is, very much against the political establishment. They're rising up, and the political class doesn't like it. And that's the way to read this thing. I don't know how else to read it. Jesse, maybe you could concoct some idea in your mind.
I mean, I have the same idea, too. It's just the establishment is unhappy that outsider-type people are getting in. They would rather have it be the good old boys club that it is. They'd rather, nobody goes around and shares the secrets of what's going on at the Capitol. But there's a lot of people out there that want transparency, and they want a representative or a senator who's going to go there and fight and not just go along with the pack.
Yeah, in 3 of these cases, so DePel beat Representative Tony Jorgens, just awful voting, left-wing voting Republican. So he beat a representative for the Senate seat. Natalie Barnes took out an incumbent Rhino Senator Eric Pratt, and Brett Bussman beat Paul Utke.
Yep.
So that's a senator as well. So 3 of the people that were taken out were part of the political class. And so in the case of, I think, Pratt and Juergens for sure, I got to imagine it's Utke too, the political class is all getting in line with them, which is kind of funny from my vantage point. You can just see how these guys all work together. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, or Chamber of Compromise, as we should call these guys. The guys that were silent during the lockdowns, like businesses being shut down. Oh, that's not really an important issue for us, right?
Yeah.
We're just the Chamber of Commerce, and commerce has been shut off. Like, you'd think if there's ever an issue the Chamber of Commerce should be on top of is when commerce no longer exists.
You'd think.
So we were the Chamber of Commerce, my God, during COVID. Like, you got to understand, like, when we took on emergency powers, Tim Walz' emergency powers, we were the only ones initially. You know, there became a big coalition, and a lot of that coalition was new groups. The Chamber of Commerce wasn't doing shit. So, yeah, Chamber of Compromise, which pushes things like driver's license for illegals and stuff like that. So they're whatever the pro-jobs majority, whatever the heck their PAC has endorsed all the political class. It's hilarious, all the political class. The Minnesota Peace Officers Association, which pretends to speak for all peace officers or police, which is a ridiculous claim, has now endorsed a lot of these people in the political class. That's generally how it goes, by the way. A lot of these political organizations, all they do is keep the political class in power. They want the status quo. The funny thing is, this election cycle, that's not what the people want. They do not. The primary voters are definitely not on board with that. So I think they're going to fail, and they're going to fail tremendously. So one interesting thing about this, if we go back to the story about the Image GOP, you want to pull up this article again, Dawson. This has actually happened before. So Jeremy Munson in 2020 was primaried. So Jeremy Munson being one of the more conservative voting members. The establishment recruited a candidate against him in the primary. And a week before the primary, they cut off the data access for him. So it's literally happened before, and that was actually under a different leader. I've never seen it at this large scale, but then again, there wasn't as many, primaries back then. So there's these gangsters will do this stuff to you. Let's just imagine I'm wrong, because obviously I don't know what's going through David Hand's head, right? But I think most of us can kind of see through what's going on here. We can see through this. What's the analogy I'm trying to think of? We can see right through this, okay? If he was acting in good faith, why on earth would you wait until Monday to let these people know that there's an issue with your data access? Wouldn't you go to these candidates, your endorsed candidates, you're the GOP chair, you think there's an issue with the data agreement, you would go to those candidates and go, listen, guys, I think there's a problem here, okay? We need to talk about this. That's how you would handle it, because they're your endorsed candidates. Your job is to support them. But instead what they do, they cut their access off on Friday, don't even tell them about it Monday, and then basically gun to your head, this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
There's no way David Hand's a good actor here, right?
No, absolutely. He's not a good representative of the GOP, and I think it's unfortunate how bad he's been. And he chooses to target Action for Liberty nonstop. He really doesn't like us. And I don't know necessarily why, because what we're about is conservative ideas. We want to see a conservative government. We want to see Tim Walz taken out. So really, he should be our biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, it's because we don't stop at calling out Democrats. We say what we have to say about these Republicans that are ruining this country and this state. And so that's just not kosher to guys like him. Last week he had a fun time on a press release attacking Action for Liberty. Basically lies and ridiculous claim. Erroneous campaign finance board complained against us. I don't even want to get into that. But once again, David Hand showing his true colors. And by the way, you can't dismiss the timeline here. He does that against us, And then a day later or whatever it was, he's now going after these candidates who are clearly aligned with us on issues like health freedom and giving back the surplus, which, by the way, most Republicans are not on board with. Okay. So if he was a good actor, that's what he would do. Now, he's not. He would talk to these guys and not just cut off the data. Here's the deal. He's not like he's playing this like follow the rules kind of personality, like, oh, this data agreement, this thing, like I'm just playing by the rules kind of thing. But I don't know a single case where this guy has intervened where it actually hurts the political class. We've got countless examples. Pull up that article again. I put up a couple in here. So there's this case down in Kitson County. Move down, Dawson, for me for real quick. There's going to be some letters. Oh, let me bring this up real quick. So this is Mark Bashowski. Bashowski's an awesome guy. He was the guy that was behind the, what was it? Stop the Mandate rallies. Yeah. That's his opponent right there who challenged him in the primary, Tina Riley. Behind Kurt Doubt, who runs the House Republican Campaign Committee. She's not the endorsed candidate. What the heck is the political party unit, the House Republican Campaign Committee, doing with doing a press release or doing a presser with the candidate running against the endorsed candidate?
Yeah, and she lost bad. It was 82 to 18%. If she can't even get 20% of her own constituents to get on board with her, why is the political class saying that she's the one?
Right, exactly. And this is actually breaking the party rules, David Hand. You can't, if you're a party official or party officer, you cannot work against the endorsed candidate. You know what I just found out last night, or this morning, Jesse?
What's that?
So apparently, Tony Jurgens, Representative Tony Jurgens, who is the guy that challenged the endorsed candidate Tom DePel in Senate District 41. I know about this because that's my Senate district. So it's like Elmo all the way down to Hastings. Tony Jurgens is on the executive council of that BPOU, that BPOU's basic political organization unit. So it's like the local Republican Party. So he sits on the executive council. How on earth can he sit on the council when he is challenging himself, the endorsed candidate?
Yeah, that's a huge conflict of interest right there.
Yeah, where the hell are you on that one, David Hand? Of
Right.
Of course you're silent. You never talk about that. Go back to that article real quick, Dawson. So scroll down, and here's an interesting one. Kitson County Republicans is run by Amanda Hughes. They got this letter sent to them from David Hand. He's got the signature line there. You see that? And they're basically saying, you're out of compliance. You're not registered with the Campaign Finance Board. You need to terminate your activities and stop using our name. And we'll and basically give all the funds back to us. And then all of a sudden, Amanda Hughes is like, what the heck? Like, this is BS. And they say the CFB is investigating them. So she gives them a call, the Campaign Finance Board, that is. And the Campaign Finance Board sends them a letter. Go back to that, Dawson, saying, no, you're not being investigated. And as long as you aren't raising $750, scroll down real quick, Dawson. As long as you're not raising $750, you're not required to register with us. So there you go. David Hand just utterly lying about it, right?
Wow.
Lying about two things. First of all, they're out of compliance. They're not raising $750 unless they're doing something fishy. I don't know that, but I'm just saying from their mouth, they haven't raised $750 to spend it. So that's the requirement to file. And secondly, the CFB just utterly says, we're not investigating you. So what the hell are you talking about, David Hand? I mean, this guy is unbelievable. So there's two really interesting cases where this guy does not apply the rules evenly, although he's trying to act like he's this big rule follower.
No, it does seem that way, that he's playing this rule follower game, but it's always the rules apply to us and never to him and his friends.
Yeah, there was this infamous saying coming out of COVID, right? It's rules for thee, not for me, right? I think that'll be forever the thing we talk about. It certainly happened in COVID when it came to like mask mandates and dining together, right? Was that governor of California was the infamous one. They've all done it, by the way. Trudeau, I think, has done it too. So, okay. Yeah, him and GOP, big black guy. And by the way, just think about this. You know, like, why come after us? Why come after these endorsed candidates? Like, isn't your objective to promote the conservative agenda? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Certainly what your delegates and your people and supporters think. So what is your game here? And I just don't know any other way to look at it. Bridget, maybe you got some rationale here, but I don't know any other way to look at that other than they just don't want anything but the status quo. And the status quo is killing us. So these guys are really showing their true colors. They're just in the business of keeping the status quo for the power structure that's in place right now. All right, I want to talk about Tim Walz's commercial launch, which is getting some airtime. I think someone told me it was played on TV last night, news time. So Governor Walz, all right, so first of all, you got the M and GOP basically saying shit about us and going after these conservative candidates. Meanwhile, like Action for Liberty's big focus in the last 2 years has been how terrible Tim Walz is. You don't believe me? Just go to our website, actionforliberty.com. You'll see it all over. Wait till you see our state fair booth again, too, by the way. So Tim Walz is launching his first TV ad, and you got to see this BS. Go ahead and play that, Dawson. Okay, you got to stop it. Stop it right there. That's ridiculous. First of all, he didn't save lives. He's even admitted he hasn't saved lives from his emergency powers, right? What this guy did was destroyed lives. And I don't know if we'll ever know the cost of the lockdowns and everything he did and kids out of school. Well, yeah, we'll never know this because the government, which would be in place to gather the data and do the statistics, is never going to do it because it would shine a bad light on him. But we all know suicides and drug abuse and divorce and all that stuff was up because of the actions of this guy, which didn't save a life. Don't need to take my word for it. Here's Tim Walz himself saying his emergency powers didn't save lives.
And I don't want to do anything that jeopardizes having the people in place at this critical time, because we all know that there's no correlation to me using the emergency powers that actually showed that it protected people or made a difference.
See, that's like on a phone call. I think it was enough. Cleaned up a lot of things from the first one, so just roll with the punches a little bit. But you did get the audio on what Walz admitting that he didn't save it. So the commercial says that basically we're tough and all that stuff, and we made it through this pandemic, and thanks to Tim Walz for saving lives. Like, oh, God, yeah, thank you for saving lives. You destroyed lives.
Yeah, just to even suggest that Minnesota was one of the top 5 in pandemic response, I can think of a few that come way before Minnesota, Florida, South Dakota, because Minnesota, to do what they did with the throwing seniors in senior homes that have COVID and the lockdowns and these vaccine mandates are absolutely disgusting. We see that they're applying to government workers. They're applying to people in the private industries. So we're towards the bottom of how things should have been run. And Tim Walz is trying to make it look tough to do these kinds of things. I think it's more disgusting and dictatorial.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think he's definitely in the top 5 lists of tyrants, right?
Yep.
Like how he handled the pandemic. I'm just trying to think, like, California, New York, probably Washington, Oregon, and we got to be up there. Yeah, he's probably number 5.
Yep.
Right? So, and it's certainly the worst state in the Midwest, because that's what you got to do is you got to compare it. Like, I'll never forget. This is November of 2020, okay? And it's the second shutdown by Tim Walz. Remember, he started by you can't throw darts. I don't think people remember that. He literally started, we're banning darts. So then he shuts down the bars and restaurants again. And I wanted to get a beer. I needed to get out of the house. I needed to go get a beer. My little sister wanted to go get a beer. So we went to Hudson, Wisconsin, because I live right along the eastern part of Minnesota. Drive across the border, Hudson. Wide open, because they got a Supreme Court that actually understood rights. So Governor Evers, who would have been just as bad as Tim Walz, didn't get away with it in their courts. Our courts are awful. And, Jesse, man, it was like 3-hour waits everywhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was unbelievable. And it was all Minnesota vehicles. Booming. So it's like, and then those of you that are on the Iowa borders, North Dakota, South Dakota, you all saw the same thing. If you're on the Canadian border, it's even worse, right? You're not going north. Remember, the people in the Northwest Angle, like, literally had a problem because you got to drive through Canada to get there. Freaking Canada.
Right.
So what a terrible claim to make. since the audio is not working on the rest of that video, what he goes on to talk about is record low unemployment rate. And wages are going up. That's what he literally says in his video. So he's like trying to paint this picture that things are going smoothly. Things are going well. Thank you, Tim Walz, for doing well. And thank you for standing up for businesses. By the way, you threw a business owner in jail for doing what? Commerce? Where was the Chamber of Commerce on that one, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like Chamber of Commerce. Just think of that name. Chamber of Commerce. Let's see. What kind of cases should we take on? Oh, the government's about to throw someone in jail for doing commerce. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's ridiculous that the Chamber of Commerce, a group who's supposed to be helping businesses, trying to cut regulations, and seeing that these business owners were shut down and they do nothing about it but try to put in more establishment types. So ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. All right, so Walz is so I've got this long-standing belief in politics. It's like you can't fool people when they see and live an experience, okay? And that's like war, so like security, and it's definitely the economy. Have you gone to the gas station recently? Have you gone to the grocery store? How can anyone make the argument things are going well right now? And he also has the audacity at the end of this video to say one Minnesota. We're one Minnesota, which no one believes that shit.
No.
We're not one Minnesota. Yeah. Can't even let Dave Chapelle, a comedian, perform at First Avenue. Oh, that's one Minnesota. All those people that wanted to watch Dave Chapelle last night, which they ended up moving the venue, by the way, so people were still able to watch it. But they literally, the two Minnesotas existed last night on Dave Chapelle, right? There's not one Minnesota, Tim Walz. So I don't believe people are going to buy this thing. This election is going to be about the economy. Like, I don't know if people understand. I mean, security will definitely have an impact on it, but it's the economy. People are sick and tired of paying these prices at the pump, paying at the grocery store, and everything else. And beyond just that, like we alluded to earlier, it's the workforce. Okay, so unemployment's low, but there's so many jobs that are just going unfilled. I was talking to, well, I don't know if she wants me to mention names. So I was talking to a bar owner who literally has about half the staff she would usually have in the summer. So a lot of people are wanting to come to her bar and grill. She just can't even meet the demand. And I think everyone understands it. Oh, I was on a canoe trip a couple weekends ago, and the canoe rental place that outfits a lot of the people on this river, they were saying, they couldn't hire anyone. They usually have to turn resumes away or applications away. This year they couldn't find anyone. So like the family had to cover down. The whole family is like running the operation. And Tim Walz is just like, yeah, well, you know what? Unemployment's low and wages are going up. If you think about it, Jesse, they always wanted $15 an hour.
They're going to get it.
They pretty much have achieved that, right?
Oh, yeah. With this inflation, I mean, it might as well be $15 an hour for everybody.
No, I mean, it literally is $15 an hour. I'm not making this up. Like, you can flip burgers and you get $50 an hour. So they've achieved their $15 an hour. And there's no, unless Minneapolis might be that way, but there is not a minimum wage of $15 an hour. It just has happened now. Pretty much every job is $15 an hour because you can't find people to take the job for less. That's not a good sign. And you have to have $15 an hour because no one can afford food and other goods. This is all because of reckless spending and these dirty politicians who just printed money out of thin air, thinking they can solve the problem. And Tim Walz is just like that. Now, he's not in the U.S. Congress anymore, but certainly when he was there, he was recklessly spending and running up the debt, which is what causes inflation. And in the state of Minnesota, this guy wasn't outspoken on it. And on top of that, he can actually help Minnesota families right now by returning the surplus to us. That's like $4,000 to us taxpayers. Each one of us, $4,000, and he's doing absolutely nothing. So this is Tim Walz's one Minnesota. We're just all going to suffer together. But I'm going to pretend like things are going well. I'm going to tell you in a TV commercial and hope you believe me. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. Do you think it's going to work, Jesse? I don't think it's going to work.
No, I don't think so either. I think people are able to smell the BS coming at them. So I think the people will totally reject it. Tim Walz, he's good at pretending he's something he's not. So, of course, he's going to fool some people. But I don't see that commercial making sense to a lot of people.
All right. Before we sign off, I've got to find out from you, Jesse, because you're a MAGA guy. What the heck's going on in Trump world these days?
You know, I'm seeing some things on Truth Social that are pretty interesting. There's, Trump is putting some stuff out there, and he's definitely making it sound like he's running again. He just put a couple of articles up. One of them said Trump for president 2024, and another one said only Donald Trump can win for president. And I think that may be true. Donald Trump might be the only Republican who can win, because if a Republican...
Hold on. What are you talking about? He's the only one that can win?
If you aren't Trump or you don't have the support of Trump, good luck becoming the president.
I don't know. Bridget, do you buy that?
I don't think I buy that 100%, but I'd be happy to see him president again.
Who's your pick right now?
My pick?
Yeah.
I personally would like DeSantis more, I think, but I love Trump too.
I think DeSantis is the better option.
That's exactly what the media wants you to think. That's what the establishment wants you to think. If establishment DC has their way, we're having President DeSantis. Trust me, America. Trust me. We want Trump again. He's the real deal. We don't need to try and screw around with this DeSantis fella. We can have everything we wanted, just like we had in 2016. So.
What about Dave Smith?
Oh well, he's an interesting guy. He knows a lot, but he's a little too out there for me. He's
too out there for you. Come on. Well, yeah, we wouldn't want a comedian. He'll get canceled, right?
Sure. Yep.
Is there any other big name in the Republican ranks? I mean, DeSantis is the other name that gets thrown out there.
People say that Mike Pence is thinking about running. Chris Christie, Tulsi Gabbard. I think Tulsi Gabbard is...
As a Republican, Tulsi
absolutely.
Gabbard?
I think that's what's going to happen. I think Tulsi Gabbard... I like her for the most part on most of the issues, but she's a grifter.
Whoa, hold on.
She's a
on
grifter.
Most of the issues? What are the issues?
Well, and that's the thing with her. It's tough to tell where she really stands, because nowadays she goes on Fox News, says everything we want to hear.
Yeah.
But it's tough to tell what she is. I think she's more of a grifter. I think she's going to try to primary Trump. She'll have a little bit more success in the Republican primary than the Democrats, because the Democrats gave her no love. But as of where it stands, I expect a primary between Trump, DeSantis, Christie, Pence, and Tulsi, and I think Trump's coming out on top, and he's going to take out Joe Biden.
I don't know about that. Well, the interesting thing is the anti-Trump movement, which is, they went into hiding for 4 years, and then they started surfacing again. You would imagine they're going to have their candidate.
Yep, whether that be Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, they'll have someone to run.
Liz Cheney would... Take my money now. Liz Cheney versus Trump on the debate stage. Take my money now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, there's the argument why Trump should run again for the debate stage. Literally the best entertainment ever.
Oh, yeah.
I was like you, Jesse, kind of a political nerd and always watched the debates. First of all, in 2020, I could not even stand to watch the Democrat debates. Now, luckily, I got to watch some of the things after the fact, watch Tulsi Gabbard, because the thing I do appreciate about her is she was very much against the political establishment, and she called them out. So I love that. But it's so hard for me to watch the Democrat debates, because what these guys believe these days is just so outrageous. But the Republican debates in 2015, 2016, I mean, some of the best entertainment ever. I couldn't stand to miss it. And, I was a big Rand Paul fan. Still this day, I think Rand Paul is the best senator, best guy out there in U.S. Congress. But he took him down in the first debate. It was unbelievable.
All he had to do was call Rand Paul ugly. It didn't matter that Rand Paul had the best arguments. It didn't matter that Rand Paul was the smartest and had was the best liberty guy. It was just Trump called him ugly, and from then on, he's ugly Rand Paul.
And then you got the just crucifixion of Jeb Bush. That
right.
And that's what I've always said, Trump's got a soft spot in my heart because he took out a Bush and a Clinton. Right? That's the great part.
It's impressive.
But to me, I think I feel like DeSantis would be the better option. But what am I missing here? I don't really follow this stuff as much as some people think I would. I just I'm so focused on more local issues. I'm kind of disenchanted by the way these guys operate. So much fluff and so much crap. And when you get that level, these fake endorsements, all that kind of stuff. So I don't follow as much. But what's the big issue with DeSantis? Because it seems like in terms of operating under COVID, he was pretty good.
Yeah, one thing I always say, DeSantis, great governor, terrible congressman. He was, when his time was in Congress, he wasn't a real fighter. He was one of those people that voted for every single military expansion. He was for every single war.
But Trump did that too, right? So he was voting for all that stuff too.
A little bit, but Trump also held up one of the omnibus bills and shut down the government, and it was a defense bill.
Whoa, I'm sorry. I don't recall this. When did that happen?
That was one of, probably 2018. There was a big scuffle over the defense budget bill, and Trump said, I'm willing to veto it. I'm going to...
Yeah, but then he caved. He caved on that.
He eventually had to.
Yeah,
eventually
that's
the bill's coming to you. So
but you're just saying DeSantis would cave quicker? What's your point?
Exactly. That DeSantis, I think he's got the special interest behind him. I think that there's going to be... I think that the people that like DeSantis are good people, but I think they're going to be disappointed if it ever happened. I don't think that DeSantis is the guy that he's posing himself to be.
When you look at Trump, his record in 2020, and I'll just bring up two things. He's the one that put Anthony Fauci in front of the TV. So he ushered this guy in, this guy that belongs in jail. And he also started the massive expansion of our money, which is causing inflation. Right now, Biden obviously doubled down, and all the Democrats are on board with it. But that was under Trump, and Trump was supporting it. In fact, he was calling out Thomas Massie for wanting to get a recorded roll call vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stack that up against a guy like DeSantis? You just assume DeSantis would have been the same guy, or certainly maneuvered the pandemic in a different way.
Right. Well, and Trump, he got a little bit trapped, and of course, Trump's always playing 4D chess, so it's not always a simple black and white. There's some gray with Trump on how he's maneuvering and handling what he does. But with Fauci was someone in the beginning, even though people like you and I, we couldn't stand him from the second we saw him. There were a lot of people out there that liked him. There was a lot of people out there that thought he was the one who was giving them good information. So Trump had to play the game. Trump had to realize, I got to have this Fauci guy stand next to me. I can still say it came from China. I can still say everything I want to. I just got to have this, nerdy doctor next to me. And so Trump's willing to do that. Trump's willing to play ball. So he says,
4D
okay.
chess, right?
Yep, 4D chess, 5D sometimes. And so having to have Fauci there, I understand that Trump was going to get rid of him no matter what. Trump wasn't seriously taking his advice, so go ahead and have that guy stand up there and give some speeches. It's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, William Beck says Trump was also pushing the vaccines. And I think recently, too, in one of his rallies that he gave, he brought the
Johnson
guy, up on stage and praised him, and everybody booed him for that. So what do you think of that?
No, that was an interesting one. I couldn't figure out Trump's angle on that. But Trump just brought him. Well,
you just told us how you look, the lens you look through. Well, Trump's got to be right.
No.
So I just got to figure out how.
He doesn't have to be right. I just think it's more fun when he is. And that was a weird one, Bridget, where he said, and here's the Johnson & Johnson owner. This guy's so rich, he's got more money than anyone. You can't believe how rich this guy is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I thought that was weird. It was, I don't know why he did it, but.
I mean, if he plans to run again, I think that's a little out of touch with his base, especially with inflation and the economy.
Yeah, but what is it? 85% of people have been vaccinated, so the majority of the country actually agrees with the vaccine.
I don't know if I would say that, though.
I disagree with that, too.
Yeah.
But the majority, has
first
gotten
of all,
vaccinated.
First of all, she said the base.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to take the base, and the base, it's not 85%. Secondly, it's there are a lot of people that got the vaccine, but they did not get boosted. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a big amount.
And Trump's the kind of guy, he's saying, what are we going to do, have this keep going forever? And he's saying, he's pushing the FDA, put these vaccines out there. And if he didn't do that, if it wasn't Operation Warp Speed, it would have been another year before the vaccines, and I'm sure we still would have seen all of the problems with the vaccines too. So it's not, I think Trump was just trying to expedite the process and move things along and make our country great again.
We need to do a segment. If we continue doing this show, we need to do a segment. Stump our MAGA guy.
Stump the Trump.
Stump the Trump. Yeah. All right. Anything else in the Trump world? I mean, I have a True Social, but you know what? I lost so much interest because it took, like 3 months for me to finally get it. And then I got it, and I did 2 posts, and it was like, this is no I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, the memes on there are unreal.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
Now you got me.
It's something, the stuff you'll see on there is stuff you won't get on Facebook or Twitter. This is a different kind of, different kind of crew.
You just convinced me. I am a sucker for memes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
There's one I saw, this one's a little weird, but I saw George Soros breastfeeding Beto O'Rourke. So if that's a meme that's out there,
That's a meme.
anything's possible on
That
True
works.
Social.
I have not seen. I don't know if I've seen a breastfeeding meme.
It's something.
Oh man, I just had many ideas come in my head. So when's he announcing, Jesse?
Any day now, any day.
Well, come on, like the end of the week or what?
Well, some people want him to wait until after the 2022 elections and everything. I think the sooner the better. The sooner the better. That way you can start bringing everybody in, start wrapping up the support, scaring off DeSantis and everybody else who might even try to take a shot at him.
Gotcha. Any comments we need to address before we sign off there, Bridget?
Maybe one question from Rocks and Cows, maybe for Jesse. Why hasn't Trump come to endorse Munson over Never Trump-backed Finstead?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm wondering why Trump is pretty silent on Minnesota overall. Trump, I haven't seen him say anything about Scott Jensen. I haven't seen him say anything about a lot of these statewide races, and you see that Trump is out there endorsing people for even some state house seats in Arizona and Nevada. So Trump is obviously paying attention to everywhere, but if Trump doesn't want to endorse Finstad, there's probably a reason for it, and I'd imagine also we'll see how seriously Munson's even trying to run this thing, and it's a weird election anyway for Munson to continue to try to primary. I'm sure Munson's probably the better option there. But yeah, I'm wondering the same thing too, if why Trump isn't getting more involved in Minnesota and making some endorsements. So I don't know. I wish I knew, but I don't know.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to sign off here, and we'll be back, I think, next week. Eventually, we're going to start doing this more regularly, but I wish I could just turn the actually, we could turn the cameras, but I'm a little worried about doing that, so don't do it, Dawson. He's got these PTZ cameras. He can literally just do a 360. We got a working studio. It's like when we talk about Tim Walz talking about this great economy. Oh, my God. Try building something today. And I know a lot of you business owners out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Try building something. Try hiring people for things. It's insanity. So this studio has been a long project, way too long. Shouldn't have been this long, but that's the economy we're in, thanks to these reckless spending politicians. So yeah, we're going to sign off. Thank you very much. Go to actionforliberty.com, learn more, and we'll see you next time.